Welcome back to our channel where we provide updates and undisclosed narratives on the royal family. We provide you with the exciting news: Palace confirms final DNA test of hidden child revealed. The shocked secret of Charles and Camilla. Buckingham Palace has refuted stunning allegations that King Charles III fathered an undisclosed child with Camilla Parker Bowles in the late 1980s, challenging the monarchy's resilience at a tumultuous period. An internal inquiry, reportedly led by Prince William, determined that a handwritten diary, a formal non-disclosure agreement, and medical documents, including an ultrasound scan, were elaborate forgeries. The episode resulted in Queen Camilla's withdrawal from public life and an attempted departure from the UK, which was thwarted by palace authorities. A seemingly private secret transformed into a constitutional upheaval. The issue pervaded headlines for weeks, exposing a significant rift within the royal family and jeopardizing the institution's prestige early in King Charles's reign. The succession crisis was averted. Nevertheless, analysts cautioned that the emotional and institutional ramifications would probably last for years, altering royal convictions both domestically and outside the Commonwealth. The Burke Hall revelation. The scenario started in mid-October, when autumnal fog enveloped London and the Scottish Highlands. The first finding occurred at Burke Hall, the Aberdeenshire estate of King Charles. Burke Hall, bequeathed by Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, served as a cherished retreat for the king to evade public life. The perfectly maintained grounds and relative seclusion have afforded the royal family a rare feeling of privacy, making it both a sanctuary and a repository for secrets. Edward Murray, a Burke Hall gardener in his early 50s, with over 20 years of expertise, made the discovery that morning. According to the personnel, he exhibited composure and stability on the estate. While cultivating a rose garden next to an antiquated greenhouse on the estate's periphery, he struck an unforeseen solid object several feet underneath. A little wooden box about the size of a briefcase, including a tarnished brass latch, was discovered during meticulous excavation. Mr. Murray opened the parcel to discover deteriorating silk. A handwritten notebook with aged pages, a formal non-disclosure agreement (NDA) issued by Queen Elizabeth II, and a collection of medical documents unveiled a concealed history. These medical investigations utilized grainy ultrasound photos of fetal profiles. Investigators said that the name Camilla Parker Bowles appeared on the papers. Comprehending a non-disclosure agreement elucidates the importance of such a disclosure. To prevent the illegal dissemination of confidential information, private enterprises and notable individuals use NDAs. The presence of a royal NDA, personal diary entries, and medical data led both the discoverer and the public to think that a very sensitive subject was being concealed. The handwritten diary entries, described as hurried and fervent, narrated a poignant and intimate tale. The post from the late 1980s stated, "I am aware that I will be 41 this year. My chance to conceive a child may be constrained. Our child. Do you want this as well? If I conceive your offspring, I will no longer be regarded as an outsider, suggested the social implications. I shall remain a part of you eternally." The last fatal statement said that the Queen had visited today. "The Queen came to see me. She said, 'Should this child live, the whole kingdom will disintegrate.' I endorsed the paper, but will forever remember. Mr. Murray had a conflict of loyalty with such poignant and perhaps harmful facts. His long-standing association with Camilla's son, Tom Parker Bowles, who facilitated his employment at Burke Hall, impacted his decision as per colleagues. Mr. Murray transported the box to Clarence House in London, where the Queen Consort resided, certain he had uncovered a distressing secret. Clarence House, the London residence of the Prince of Wales, served as a wartime headquarters for several senior royals and as an administrative hub for the household. The prompt distribution of the papers transformed the discovery into a public calamity. Meticulously controlled disclosure. Upon Mr. Murray's arrival at Clarence House, many workers recounted a meticulously orchestrated sequence of events, as reported by those who provided testimony to investigators. Upon receiving the gift, Queen Camilla was allegedly astonished and troubled. Staff saw her becoming pale and stating, "Edward, you ought not to have discovered this. It could jeopardize everything." She wept with the journal. The image depicted a woman profoundly affected by the sudden onset of a tragic occurrence. Mr. Murray, moved by her sorrow, and with a sense of duty, said, "Madam, perhaps it is time to disclose the truth." Camilla responded with reluctance and prudence as per the same sources. She recommended addressing this issue discreetly and coordinating with a reliable media source to facilitate its public dissemination, organically, therefore reducing sensationalism and enhancing empathy. She provided Mr. Murray with the contact information of a journalist with whom she had developed a strong relationship. This phase illustrates media management concerning celebrities. A disclosure to a tabloid or reputable columnist may initiate a narrative that larger news organizations subsequently adopt. Mr. Murray's interaction with the journalist resulted in a tabloid article that was reported by the Sun, the Daily Mail, and the BBC within 48 hours. The remarkable narrative said that Camilla Parker Bowles, now Queen Consort, bore a son fathered by Prince Charles in 1989 during his marriage to Diana, Princess of Wales. The newborn was relinquished to safeguard the monarchy's succession, according to the legend. Public reaction was immediate and divided. Social media surged with commentary. The hashtag Camilla's Secret Baby gained global traction, reflecting both interest and outrage. The opposition rapidly fragmented public discourse. One faction viewed Camilla as a casualty of a stringent system that necessitated personal sacrifice, warranting compassion for relinquishing a child for the crown. Another faction was incensed, seeing the disclosure as an additional facet of deceit from an individual already entangled in the prevailing story surrounding Charles and Diana's divorce. Television news panels and political analysts discussed the controversy, drawing comparisons to other royal controversies, such as the abdication of King Edward VIII, when personal affairs disastrously intersected with public responsibilities. King Charles III issued a public statement from Buckingham Palace to express sympathy. He said, "If this is accurate, we must confront it with compassion," seeming distressed as he spoke to the reporters. Camilla has had significant experiences. He declared an internal investigation, and in a display of empathy and institutional continuity, did not dismiss the possibility of bestowing a royal title upon the alleged child. His empathetic response, devoid of situational control, lent official legitimacy to the allegations and exacerbated the media frenzy. Skepticism and covert investigation. Regarding the Prince of Wales, Prince William was profoundly skeptical, notwithstanding the King's hospitality and empathy. William observed the media narratives from his Kensington Palace office with mounting apprehension. He was cautious after seeing Diana's intense public scrutiny and its detrimental effects on her private life. Multiple narrative elements troubled him. The announcement seemed to be intentionally timed as the monarchy sought stability after the death of Queen Elizabeth II. He saw Camilla's composed public reaction, neither a denial nor an elucidation, as strange for somebody falsely accused of such a significant secret. Prince William's skepticism stemmed not from personal animosity, but from a disciplined perspective shaped by his environment and military training, which emphasized factual analysis and thorough inquiry. Assistants reported that he murmured, "Excessive details are inconsistent." William started a clandestine inquiry, suspecting that the palace investigation would be compromised by his father's sentiments and eager to uncover the truth. He requested a trustworthy former MI5 associate to trace the source of this rumor, identify the individual responsible for it. MI5, the United Kingdom's domestic intelligence agency, safeguards national security and undertakes covert investigations that may impact public institutions. William's discussion with a former security associate revealed his apprehension over the threat and his recognition that the roots of a narrative may have equal significance to its content. William's shadow investigation began to trace the sources of the accusations, seeking forensic documentary and human evidence that may corroborate or refute the sensational narrative dominating global news cycles. Exposed deception. Prolonged conspiracy. In the following weeks, Prince William's team's covert investigation revealed a pattern of intentional deception that started in the early 2000s, as per the findings presented to the king. Investigators claimed that the concept originated in 2002, shortly after Queen Elizabeth II granted implicit approval for the marriage of Prince Charles and Camilla. Investigators uncovered that Camilla dreaded being marginalized and overlooked after the king's death. Charles's life and status delineated her role as queen consort, and in his absence, she feared the loss of her rank and public remembrance. Investigators concluded that conceiving a concealed child served as an insurance policy to preserve her significance and establish a legacy. Upon success, the idea would provide her a permanent familial connection to the dynasty that would last beyond the king's death. The investigative timeline presented to the king demonstrated the meticulous execution of this technique. According to investigators, Camilla dedicated months to studying historical fabrication techniques and procuring materials to simulate age and authenticity. She used antiquarian paper and ink sourced from a London antique shop, including tea staining to enhance its darkness and yellowing. She sought 1980s memoirs and personal correspondence characterized by current rhythm and idioms to compose an authentic journal. An ex-aristocratic memoir editor acquainted with Camilla for years and collaborating with investigators was said to have counseled her on style, supposing she was assisting with a personal literary endeavor. The individual then said to investigators that she was unaware the documents would deceive the king and the public. Technical difficulties escalated with the NDA. The inquiry revealed that Camilla had replicated a palace document from an associate at Clarence House for the fraudulent non-disclosure agreement. The signature of Queen Elizabeth II. Elizabeth R. was practiced and replicated. The medical records and ultrasound images were the last and most sensitive items. Investigators discovered the ultrasound in the medical records of a dead woman who had undergone fertility treatments decades before. Camilla allegedly altered the woman's name and blurred the ultrasound to conceal her apparent identity. Following the fabrication and packing of these components, a plausible concealment strategy was required for the narrative. Camilla went to Birkhall and concealed the completed falsified documents in an antiquated wooden box in the greenhouse for future retrieval. She recommended to the estate management months before to expand the rose garden next to the greenhouse, presumably to be assigned to Edward Murray, her trusted gardener, to ensure that a staff member would identify the box. Investigators said that the intentional coincidence was key in uncovering the scheme. Prosecutors and constitutional lawyers subsequently observed that the scheme was remarkable for its technical sophistication and dependence on interpersonal connections and institutional complacency. Intimate, informal relationships between domestic staff and senior royals had cultivated a level of trust that could be exploited for deceit. It exploited the notion that some members of the royal family were sacrosanct and immune to public scrutiny or formal protocols. The dispute and escalating strains. The inquiry involving Prince William yielded results as news organizations disseminated the story, leading to heightened public discourse. He traveled to Birkhall to conduct an interview with Edward Murray. William interrogated the gardener over the discovery during an intense argument. The prince reportedly said, "It's peculiar. What prompted you to excavate the box's location? Were you given instructions, mister?" Murray, mortified and conflicted between loyalty and trepidation, asserted coincidence. Nevertheless, his demeanor and evolving appearance throughout the interview prompted William to pursue an investigation. Subsequent to the prince's departure, a perturbed Mr. Murray reached out to Camilla to inform her about William's visit. Investigations revealed her statement from now on remained silent. William saw this as evidence that Camilla had orchestrated elements of the revelation and was now attempting to manipulate the story to obscure it. Camilla allegedly initiated a public campaign to subvert William in preparation for his covert inquiry, exposing the deception. She instructed her media contact to depict the prince as the aggressor. Several tabloids featured headlines stating, "Prince William attempts to conceal the truth regarding King Charles III's illegitimate child," the next morning. Is he concealing information to safeguard the monarchy? William purportedly visited Birkhall to eliminate evidence influencing popular perception. The public sentiment shifted after the media's reaction. William faced criticism from social media users and tabloid readers for prioritizing the preservation of his succession above the promotion of truth and honesty. The narrative changed abruptly, casting William as the antagonist and Camilla as the sufferer. These rapid reversals illustrate how media cycles and narrative framing may alter reputations prior to the completion of investigations. The family was profoundly affected by the schism. King Charles angrily confronted William at Clarence House with a newspaper upon learning that his son was concealing the truth. "William, you are tarnishing this family's honor." His statements were reportedly loud. William said, "Father, I am safeguarding it," attempting to seem calm. "Do you perceive all is fabricated, Mr. William's rationale derived from his first inquiry did not convince the king, who emotionally engaged in the narrative of a missing child, and his and Camilla's sacrifices, whispered, "Camilla has endured enough." The discourse concluded in a painful impasse, resulting in the king's despondency and William's further estrangement. Evidence accumulates and deception diminishes. To substantiate his assertions, Prince William retrieved the diary non-disclosure agreement and medical folder from his father and entrusted them to a team of independent forensic specialists for examination for the family's sake. Forensic document analysis, employing chemical analysis paper, fiber assessment, handwriting comparison, and other techniques, would ascertain authenticity. The forensic evidence was definitive. The chemical analysis of diary ink identified substances that were not widely available until the late 1990s, while the examination of the paper indicated manufacture dates until the early 2000s. The results indicated that the diary did not originate from the late 1980s as claimed. According to the Royal Archives, Queen Elizabeth II did not establish or endorse a non-disclosure agreement for Camilla Parker Bowles. Camilla's name was absent from the 1989 hospital or maternity records. The ultrasound image was discovered among a deceased woman's medical documents, indicating it was stolen and rebranded. Human intelligence augmented forensic evidence. Investigators scrutinized the retired forensic expert who counseled Camilla on paper aging and forgery detection. He said that he assisted since he believed the documents were intended for a book rather than for fraudulent purposes. The previous editor, who provided guidance on the diary's artistic authenticity, also expressed regret, stating she was unaware of the ultimate objective. According to her statements to investigators, her discussions seemed to be simple advice on language phrasing and aging ink, rather than a deliberate scheme to deceive a sovereign and the populace. Investigators scrutinized Camilla's financial records and electronic correspondence for evidence of planning. Transfers were discovered to a clandestine account using a maiden name along with other encoded communications to a media middleman. The amounts were small by royal standards, but sufficient to cover certain services, and the messages indicated long-term planning rather than arrogance. Technological evidence scans and emails had timestamps that violated the timeline. The laboratory findings and corroborating evidence constituted a compendium of fabrication. The figures validated the earlier appeals of Prince William and others for a prudent, evidence-driven methodology. King Charles saw a sense of betrayal due to the mounting evidence, ultimate confrontation and evasion attempt. Prince William sought a last meeting at Clarence House with his father and Queen Camilla, accompanied by a substantial dossier of forensic and testimonial evidence. In that secluded spot, he placed the paper on the table and spoke articulately. "Father, there is no offspring," he said, firm but poignant. "The whole situation is a fabrication." He enumerated the laboratory findings, archival searches, testimonial proof, and the provenance of the ultrasound images. Camilla orchestrated this whole scheme to deceive you and the monarchy. King Charles's incredulity transformed into sorrow as the consequences became apparent. He seized the invaluable notebook and said, "It cannot be." "Camilla, please tell me this is not true." Camilla gasped and collapsed into a sofa, seeming disoriented as reported by witnesses. Courtiers rushed to assist her while William watched with a clinical detachment, seeing the fainting as a mere diversion. Camilla implemented a meticulously devised scheme hours later while courtiers attended to her in her private quarters. She instructed a loyal assistant, "Prepare the car. We depart for Switzerland tonight. Utilize Aberdeenshire's minor airstrip." Investigators later discovered that Camilla possessed a clandestine bank account under her maiden name containing sufficient funds for exile and had formulated a credible strategy for life overseas. She may evade the imminent dangers of exposure by escaping to Switzerland, a nation renowned for its discreet seclusion and financial confidentiality. Prince William had surreptitiously safeguarded the palace and monitored egress routes in anticipation of such an eventuality. Royal security personnel observed Camilla's unmarked luxury vehicle departing Clarence House amidst inclement weather and alerted local law enforcement. The vehicle arrived at the Aberdeenshire private airport to encounter armed officers. In accordance with royal directives, the lead officer stated, "Mrs. Stop driving Camilla Parker Bowles." The palace issued this formal decree to prevent a senior royal from departing the country during an internal investigation, despite limited options and no legal basis for arrest. Her attempts to flee were thwarted and she was returned to Clarence House. The legality of the palace-imposed prohibition on exiting the nation was promptly contested by constitutional attorneys. Some argued that the intervention constituted an overreach of authority in the absence of a judicial mandate or criminal accusation, while others referenced the royal family's unique status and the necessity of safeguarding state symbols. The palace defended the measure as a temporary and judicious action to facilitate the advancement of forensic and official inquiries. Consequences: wounded yet steady monarchy. The following morning, Buckingham Palace disclosed the inquiry results, affirming that the essential documents were fraudulent. The statement detailed the forensic findings, verified that Queen Elizabeth II never executed a non-disclosure agreement with Camilla, and indicated that Camilla fabricated the narrative of a concealed child. Certain newspapers dubbed the incident the Great Royal Scam. The media has oscillated between denouncing and shielding members of the royal family. The revelation incited a vigorous public reaction. Critics of Prince William redirected their disapproval towards Camilla. Numerous individuals congregated outside Buckingham Palace to demand accountability and express sympathy for a monarch who had been deceived. Broadcasters sought insights from constitutional experts and royal historians regarding the institutional ramifications. A BBC analyst remarked that the deceit constituted not merely a personal betrayal, it is an institutional crisis, jeopardizing the very legitimacy of the monarchy. This underscored that the monarchy's authority is predicated on law, succession, and public trust, with extensive implications. King Charles reportedly experienced profound devastation at Clarence House. In a private conversation following the revelation of the deceit, Camilla expressed to the king, "I was terrified of losing you, Charles." She conveyed her anxiety about being forgotten and rendered insignificant without him. Despite her explanations, her admission offered scant solace. The king, heartbroken and disillusioned, responded in a raw, anguished tone, "You haven't merely lost me. You have shattered my faith in everything we constructed." The palace swiftly alleviated reputational damage to the crown. In a succinct statement, Camilla Parker Bowles was stripped of her title as Queen Consort and relocated to a modest residence in Wiltshire without legal proceedings. The palace's announcement was measured and constitutional, prioritizing institutional preservation over punitive measures. Camilla's public role effectively concluded. Prince William's public image enhanced following the catastrophe. He addressed the nation from Kensington Palace in a televised speech underscoring the monarchy's enduring principles. "The truth never requires falsehoods to endure," he stated. This challenging period in our royal history also served as a moment to reaffirm our values, integrity, accountability, and unity. "I will protect this monarchy not solely for my family, but for the citizens of Britain." His measured tone and emphasis on transparency resonated with a public fatigued by sensationalism, and subsequent opinion polls indicated a markedly increased approval rating. Numerous observers referred to him as the heir who salvaged the crown, highlighting his newfound stability. Nevertheless, those central to the turmoil experienced personal distress. King Charles sequestered himself at Birk Hall for several weeks to recuperate from the betrayal and public disgrace. Sources indicate that the king was disheartened, struggling to reconcile his affection for Camilla with the incriminating evidence of deceit. Although the monarchy remained institutionally sound, it bore visible scars from a significant deception that had obliterated the sanctity and discretion typically shielding royal matters from public scrutiny. Politicians in the UK and Commonwealth reacted with temperance and apprehension. The Prime Minister recognized the outcomes and emphasized the distinction between the personal matters of the royal family and the constitutional duties of the Crown in a brief statement. Numerous prime ministers from Commonwealth realms indicated that the issues were primarily internal, but would be monitored for potential legal or constitutional ramifications. Opposition MPs in Parliament insisted on a more comprehensive public accounting and clarification regarding the involvement of security services in the investigation. Some Republicans advocated for a reassessment of the monarchy's role and transparency, while others cautioned against conflating private misconduct with the responsibilities of constitutional monarchy. Contemplations and prospective consequences. The incident challenged personal ambition and public responsibility within the monarchy, highlighting the necessity for credible evidence in constitutional matters. Contemporary media ecosystems, tabloids, social platforms, and broadcast outlets exacerbated a private discovery into a worldwide calamity, illustrating the fragility of public trust when confronted with allegations regarding the private lives of prominent individuals. Following the incident, historians and constitutional scholars emphasized that both moral authority and legal succession safeguard the monarchy. Trust in the crown constitutes social capital. Its erosion due to royal dishonesty jeopardizes the institution's capacity to elicit popular loyalty. Republican movements and detractors of hereditary privilege may discover new rhetorical tools in occurrences that reveal establishment duplicity or manipulation. The royal family underwent immediate and likely enduring modifications in response to the crisis. Camilla's subtle dismissal and title revocation altered the monarch's public household. The king's absence and the Prince of Wales's heightened public engagement indicated an escalation in the heir's responsibilities as a guardian of institutional integrity and a potential architect of the monarchy's public image. The palace committed to internal reforms to avert recurrence. These encompassed enhanced regulation of archive access and household information, mandatory digital audits of documents, and more explicit criteria for personnel encountering content of public interest. Royal advisors and external legal specialists recommended formalizing the royal household's engagement with external forensic and legal authorities regarding constitutional threats. The objective of these initiatives was to restore public trust through administrative safeguards rather than systemic decay. The proposed reforms encompassed a centralized digital registry of officially sanctioned documents maintained at royal residences, obligatory staff training on record-keeping and confidentiality rotation policies for essential estate personnel to mitigate personal loyalties, and a formal liaison position between the royal household and the National Archives to verify provenance assertions. Security advisors also sought more explicit guidelines regarding the notification of police or other state entities in cases where suspected crimes pertain to the monarchy's private matters. The narrative's human aspect is essential. Marital infidelity and institutional deceit pose significant ethical and emotional dilemmas. The tension between personal motivations, fear of anonymity, aspiration for historical permanence and public duties, transparency, accountability to the nation imbued a constitutional event with a human essence. Camilla's admission that her actions stemmed from a fear of being forgotten rendered the decision more relatable while underscoring the ethical impropriety of her approach. Subsequent cultural and media repercussions transpired. The controversy prompted the British press to re-evaluate source verification and coverage of the royal family. Several newsrooms issued apologies and undertook internal evaluations for failing to adequately verify document origins. Two national tabloid editors penned extensive editor's notes acknowledging verification lapses. At least one senior writer resigned after admitting to a lack of insistence on corroborating evidence. In media ethics courses, academic critics utilize the incident to illustrate how the pursuit of scoops and clicks can compromise proper verification, particularly concerning emotionally charged subjects such as family and identity. Legal scholars deliberated the potential for criminal charges. While forgery and deceit constitute offenses, numerous experts highlighted the logistical and factual complexities involved in prosecuting a senior royal. Currently, the palace's internal accountability system inhibits formal criminal charges. Some commentators argued that these cases reveal a disparity between the legal standards applicable to ordinary citizens and the informal accountability measures employed at the highest echelons of state representation, whereas others contended that the fragile constitutional equilibrium necessitates exceptional discretion to avert the state from devolving into a forum for familial conflicts. Issues of public policy related to legal equality and constitutional conventions arose from discussions on legal accountability. Numerous legal scholars proposed an unbiased review mechanism to investigate potential unlawful conduct by senior royal household officials accompanied by safeguards to maintain constitutional integrity. Critics argue that institutionalizing inquiry powers could politicize the monarchy and weaponize the law. In addition to legal concerns, the experience influenced culture by prompting individuals to investigate the construction of historical memory. Camilla's alleged objective to secure a permanent role in the family narrative provoked inquiries into humanity's desire for legacy, the anxiety surrounding obsolescence, and the potentially perilous measures individuals might undertake to inscribe themselves into history. This moral and psychological subtext complicated narratives of villainy and victimization, elucidating why many who condemned the fraud simultaneously harbored clandestine empathy for its existential dilemmas. The ramifications of the scandal may manifest in diverse forms. If feasible, familial ties may be mended, and public reconciliation ceremonies could occur, although sources have indicated that certain rifts may be irrevocable. The monarchy will undergo reconstruction through traditions, constitutional frameworks, and public service. This incident will serve as a cautionary tale regarding the precarious interplay of intimacy, power, secrecy, and modern media in public affairs. Diplomats and Commonwealth capitals were informed. Governors, general, and prime ministers across various realms issued meticulously phrased statements endorsing the continuity of Crown constitutionalism, while emphasizing that the matter was predominantly internal to the royal family. Prime ministers in Canberra and Ottawa suggested that the issue be perceived as a localized British concern, yet opposition leaders in both nations advocated for a more thorough examination of the symbolic ties to an institution seemingly susceptible to personal scandal. In the context of enduring Republican discourse, some observers in Wellington posited that the scandal bolstered republicanism, whereas others cautioned against allowing a singular controversy to dictate constitutional outcomes. International media perceived the crisis as a British narrative and a cautionary tale regarding the fragility of institutions reliant on reputation and symbolic capital. In areas with a robust Republican sentiment, commentators interpreted the event as a validation of Republican claims. Conversely, in other regions they urged moderation and caution, emphasizing that a singular scandal does not determine an institution's enduring viability. Subsequent polling indicated a nuanced public reaction. In the short term, both Camilla's and the king's reputations declined, yet support for the monarchy persisted robustly. Surveys indicated that a majority continued to endorse the monarchy, although younger demographics exhibited an increased pro-Republican sentiment due to the scandal. Prince William experienced the most significant gains across various demographic segments, while Camilla's popularity sharply declined. The incident reignited discourse among political leaders and constitutional scholars regarding contingency planning for the rare yet significant scenario in which a king's or consort's personal conduct undermines public trust. This dialogue encompassed succession law's regency and the administrative delineation between the monarch's private residence and crown functions. Senior government officials sought more explicit guidelines to safeguard critical state operations from royal palace conflicts. The crisis revealed the intricate dynamics between private and public interests within the constitutional monarchy. It highlighted the vulnerability of institutions dependent on formal legitimacy and moral authority. Furthermore, it demonstrated how forensic science and instantaneous global media can expose truths and falsehoods more rapidly than ever. The monarchy diminished and injured endures. However, these occurrences will undoubtedly influence King Charles's reign and the Windsor lineage for generations to come. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed the video, please like, subscribe, and share it.